What's happening, brothers? So I've been getting all this harassment for. Let's say I did this plane like 4 or 5 months ago. I bought this used Hanger 9, and I liked that comment from Rush, and he goes, "Is that the one you took enough wood out of to build some furniture?" Yeah, that's the one. That's good comedy right there. So yeah, I put a spinner on it, so can't tease me anymore about it not having a spinner. And I went all the way and I put wheel pants on it. These are the ones that came with it, but they were all busted up. So I glassed them all up inside and out, and then you had to cut the openings in the bottom for the tires and bolted them on. So now it should look, nice for videos. I was trying to think of a funnier word than nice. It should look appropriate, whatever the case. So yeah, the in the video, the last one I did. Yeah, I think it's the last one I posted from Tuesday. Yeah, I think that's it. The dementia's so bad now, guys. The dementia, but yeah, with this one on Tuesday, and then when I crashed it. So yeah, just the only thing that got knocked loose, I broke the prop, so I had this Zor 2810. This is the one that it came with. Actually, I didn't buy this. This is the one that came with the plane, but I took it off immediately, and so I had it in the van. So I put it right back on and went right back in the air. I tried to do it as fast as possible. I was just like trying to prove a point. Yeah, I can go right back up. Yeah, but it did loosen up the cowl ring. So tonight I took and popped the cowl off and glued up the cowl ring again. Yeah, and then yeah, did the pants and the spinner. So this thing would be good to go again, and of course it already was, but now it's just going to be a nicer looking version. And then the Edge, which is my favorite plane. Remember, I broke the rudder control horn, just snapped them right off. At least it shows that that Zap Z epoxy works really well because the rudder itself is in pristine condition. It just snapped the control horns clean right off the base without any damage, to the rudder hardpoint at all. So that glue job was pretty good. But yeah, I ran a Dubro bolt through there now, and that will take care of that. Just the same way I did this. These snapped too, and I put a Dubro bolt through. So I did the same thing over there on that. And so that's good to go as well. Then I was going to talk about some things I've been meaning to talk about lately, because I haven't done a lot of talkies. It slowed down more on the talkies, kind of this year, and especially the last few months. And it kind of goes along with, coincides with, improvement and how much I'm paying attention to learning and all that. And, I think it probably speaks to all of us. Like I've told you guys before, I always assume we're all basically the same dudes doing the same things. But, I get stagnant, and I imagine everybody gets stagnant. And my interest, I have a strong interest in everything I do and everything in the world. I like to know every bit of information available to the world. I like to discover new information, and I would like to excel at all activities, have all knowledge and excel at all activities. Which I imagine we're all actually like that too. The rest of you guys, all you guys. But so I would every day I would like to be better at RC planes, but it does get to where I do think about other things for a while. So the last 6 months, kind of, thinking about, rock climbing and golf again, some investment things, some portfolio things, stuff like that, relationships, my mom, the wife, my daughter, she had a baby, just on and on and on. My grandson, who's my fourth grandkid. So I think we all do that same thing. And so I hadn't really been making any progress, just felt like it's in a rut. And then, I started making progress again the last month. Well, then you're dwelling on it again. Like if you don't dwell on it, is my whole point of the last, okay, talking 5 minutes, and I'm just talking about dwelling on things, and the old saying that we've always had, me and my friends for 50 years, is that you'll do what you think about. And, a lot of guys talk about visualizing, for golf, or I think Kiki even talked about it for flying, that you just visualize. He said, like, I think in the interview he did with Juan Sanchez, that Skybound RC, which if you don't frequent that place, or you're not subscribed or haven't checked it out, I highly recommend Juan Sanchez Garcia over at Skybound RC on YouTube. Super smart, super knowledgeable, and yeah, does great interviews as well. He even got an interview with me. And so, but Kike said, visualize and just do like 3 flights. Don't do more than 3 flights. And just be really focused in what you do, and then go home and visualize, that night again for the next day. And so it's that kind of thing. And if you're not doing that, and for me, if you're not doing the sim time, which I've never done to this day, I've got an hour of sim time on a computer since 2001. I just can't do it. It's like torture, the worst thing. So boring. As soon as I go to turn it on, I already want to turn it off. But dwelling on it, thinking about it, kind of clearing your head of the other things in life that are all more important. It's so funny. But then I can start to learn again. I hate to talk for everyone, but probably can speak second person, third person plural, because it's probably true for all of us. But for me personally, got to have my head more clear and got to be more focused on it. Even though in the stagnant times I would like to get better, I'm not going to that way. I have to be focused. And so it'd been a while. Then I got sick. I got pneumonia for like 5 or 6 weeks. Right in the middle. Started at the 4 or 5 days before the event. Thank you. My voice, you could tell, is still not 100% back, but I couldn't even talk for like 10 days at all. Just not even a squeak, like no sound. But yeah, that set me back. And before that, I was even in a rut, and now, I'm still not where I want to be. Like, I'd like to get, next levels up, 2 or 3 levels up or something, get closer to flying like Juan Sanchez. See, then I think I'd be happy, but I won't. Then I'd have to fly better than Juan Sanchez. Then I'd have to get, start thinking I was going to get as good as Spencer Norquist. And then I'd have to get better than Spencer Norquist. It never really ends, but I would like to get better than I have been. But I have improved. I've been back a year and 9 months. That's hard to believe too. I didn't think I would last that long. So that's kind of staggering. So in 3 months, I'm going to be back for 2 years. That's a shocker. In 3 months, I'm going to be 65, which is even a bigger shocker. But I have been just the last 3 weeks since I healed up from pneumonia. Which I did get a lot of sleep, which kind of helped my eyes rest a little bit, which my eyes were a big problem. They still are, but they're a little bit better. And then just a little more focused. I think I'm rifle rolling now, just to me, far better than I ever have. Now, it may not look that way in the videos. If you look a year ago, I did a couple rifle rolls that were like literally 3 feet high, full throttle, full aileron, just peg. But those were miracle ones, and that comes to part of all this. I'm really getting scattered on the way I'm approaching talking, which you guys are used to. I'm so Mr. Sidetrack, but my whole concept of making this video was to talk about how we learn, and how I learn for sure. And that you get to, when you're stagnant and you want to improve, and you want to get to the next level. I mean, you may have to do something extreme and maybe way past your level. And that's what I did. Like in the videos where I'm flying I bought a used Skywing slick, and right, that's not a laser, is it? That's just like, yeah, that was just like red and white slick. And I punched it 3 feet high, I just punched it, and tried to rifle roll out. And there's some differences with what I'm doing now. And that's how I made it. Joe McBride's filming, but I only stayed that high for about 40 or 50 feet. Then I went up about 10, 15 feet high for another 40, 50 feet. Then I went up from there to, about 40 feet. And then, got out of there. Damned impressive to be rifle rolling, full throttle, full aileron, 3 feet high, and everything. When you're, just learning and old, just learning to rifle and all that stuff, an old guy. But it was really one of those things where I wasn't getting it. I'd been trying for upwards of a year at that point. I think actually like 8 or 9 months, that I've been trying to get rifle rolling down to where I was so comfortable with it that I could just start doing it a foot high up and down the runway like I do Harrier rolls, and as you guys see in that video, and all my videos going back to 2003 or something, I can Harrier roll an inch high, and only reason I even got caught the other day, Tuesday, with this plane is because I went too far away and I hit a grass clump, because I'm used to being 1 inch high and scraping, but the plane's closer, I can see it better because it's got super bad eyes, and it's also on the asphalt where it'll just click or slide. It'll grind a piece of the rudder or the elevator tips off, but it won't catch, but where I hit there, I was too far to really be going in inches, I'd need to be like a foot, dealing with a foot at that distance. But also there's that big tuft of mound, there's these mounds of grass out there that just like grow in a little hump, and then it gets back to dirt and then a little hump, and it just grabbed it, like Velcro. And so that's a sidetrack again, but I figured I'd get rifle rolling to that level, like if I put in the reps, like Tiger Woods likes to say, like if I did the time and I rifle rolled a lot. So it was funny, I just talked to Dan at the field the other day. He's a good pilot at our field, and he tries to do all these things, too. And he says, yeah, last year I just saw you were just 500 feet all the time, 500 feet back and forth, and probably sometimes 300 feet, but way up there. And I could never really get that comfortable. So then all of a sudden I go, well, you're gonna have to do something to break out of this, because it just wasn't coming, and that's what here we are, finally back to one of the points about learning. So I just pushed it. I just said, that's it. Now I got the trash can plane, and that first one, it's now in Ohio, in pristine condition in Ohio, but I got that one, and that helped, but that was going so slow. It had a DA100 on it, and it was just a slow motor, and it had a slower roll rate, and had real cheap servos on it that were fading, and in that blowback, and everything in the roll. So you're rolling slow and you're moving slow, even though I was pegged, but I was able to get that lower. And then with the slick, with the GP123, I just went balls to the wall, but only a couple times. And I was high with it initially, and then I was high with it after that. But I did that, and that was like a breakthrough, but I don't know how long ago that was. It was quite a few months ago, pushing a year probably, but quite a few months, like at least 8 months ago. And then, no dramatic thing happened for that. I did come down from always being at least 150 feet, because I had to be at least 150, or else I was sure could go in any second, which was true. If you're rifle rolling full throttle at, a real high roll rate, and you're new to it and you're not 12, 150 feet, I've talked about this a lot, is not really safe. It's more like 250 that's kind of safer, because from 150 you can go in real fast, in a blink. So I dropped down from that 150 and above down to, let's say, 40 and above, from having the first trash can plane, and then having that slick where I just, went crazy balls to the wall for that video, and went 3 feet high for like 50 feet. And then from there, that did get me to drop down to that 40 to 50 foot range, 30 to 50 maybe. On the lowest ever ones might have been 30, but so that was, that was a jump. So that did have an effect. And that's one of the things that I think kind of has to happen. Like if you're stagnant, you may have to push forward. Now, another activities, you're not pushing, a really expensive plane that takes a lot of time to assemble as well, and hassles and headaches and reputations and everything, like to have that thing crash. Like in a basketball, you just miss a shot, and in golf, you just hit it again, and surfing, you just get out of you come up out of the water and grab your board and go right back out. So this is a little tougher. But sometimes I think to learn, we've got to push way outside our comfort zone, and then you could start getting to that point, where you're actually doing that. And that's what's, happened, lately. And, what I really wanted, because I tended to always climb, I didn't tend to, I just always did climb. When I start the rifle roll, I could start it low, but I always immediately start climbing because it's much more comfortable to see the plane going up, and not worry that it's just immediately one false move and it's going to be buried in the ground, And when you see it rising up, man, I get super comfortable. I know that my inputs are making it go up, which makes me comfortable because now I'm going in a safe direction and I'm not going towards the ground. And I know I'm getting higher from the ground, so that makes me more comfortable too. But all along, I knew I had to get to a point where I could go level, but I knew even more I needed to descend. And I watched the good guys, the good rifle rollers, and that's the funnest thing, is to watch them go in a straight down line, and then level out, and then even go across the field sort of level, but then drop in lower and then come back up a little higher, and they have control of their altitude. And I've talked about that, the last year or two as well. And I knew I had to get to a point where I could get level. I knew I had to get to a point where I could drop, be 20 feet high, drop to 10, and then go back to 20, and I knew that's when I would, be at the next level. And you could see in that last video with this plane, I do that. I'm about, 15 feet high at the start of the rifle roll on one side of the runway. And then by the time it gets to the middle of the runway, I've dropped it, to where it's down like 10 feet high. And then I go back up to about 15 feet high, towards the other end of the runway, which was the goal, and it shows the control that I was looking for. That's where I knew I needed to go. And it also makes sense for me to do it that way because my eyes I cannot see very far. So to sit there and try to, like the really good young elite kids that are like top 10 in the world, they can they can have these rifles like 5 to 10 feet high. They can go for like 1,000 feet that way, but that doesn't make sense for me because I can't see that far. I'm just going to stuff it. But the way I did it is about the max I could do, so I'm like, our runway is like 700 feet. So like I'm 300, 400 feet away to the right. I'm like 15 feet high. By the time I'm in the center where I see the best, I'm like 10 feet high. And then when I go left, 300 or 400 feet, I'm not seeing soil again. So it makes sense that it goes up like 5 feet over there. So that's what I wanted. So I went to that next level again. Plus I was only staying low before recently at the start of the runway, at the start when I first started the rifle roll. And I would climb up, every time. And, the goal, the good runs then that I liked, I at least stayed low for a while on one side, but always by the other side of the runway. Once I passed myself, I was always higher, always, every time. Never happened that I was not higher. And now I'm lower, and I can keep it going the length of the runway. Like I said, I do get up a little higher as it gets a little bit of a distance, but the length of time I'm staying low, the length of time I'm staying level, and the fact that I can descend and then climb back up, with all, subtly, like not radical departures or anything, but, smaller departures in altitude, for me is next level. That's what I was trying to do. That was the goal I was trying to achieve for the next level. Then, there's many more levels on rifle road for that. And then there's many more levels on all the flying in addition to that. But I did get there. So I, kind of the point of the thoughts that have been in my head is these different ways that we have to learn, different ways I have to learn. And sometimes you have to push it. All the time, I guess the points I'm trying to make, all the time you have to be in the right frame of mind, like, it's going to be tough if you're not in the right frame of mind. So you got to be clear-headed and you got to be visualizing. You got to be kind of into it, at the time. And I'm not always into it. Like I said, I'm not saying I don't always, really like, planes in the hobby, but I'm not always really super focused on, you know, flying and getting better. Sometimes you're just not there, and then, but then, when our organic goo and the breeze is right and the cycle comes around and you're ready, then that's the start you have to get better. And then from there, you got to push yourself, got to visualize, then you got to push these levels, and you may have to do something extreme now and then just to shock your system out of the rut that it's in, and you guys all know, everybody that follows me, I think, is that posts and that I've ever talked to, you guys have been around and know a lot about life and how all these things work. But, we have these neural pathways and they get wider and wider and wider as we repeat something. And that's why, like, Hank Haney had that golf show years ago, and he was Tiger Woods' coach, and he, super expensive. He was $3,500 an hour back then, and that was years ago. And he got all these big celebrities, and several of them were big-time athletes. He got Sugar Ray Leonard, who, is a small man who could throw a huge punch and move real athletically and gain leverage, in his athleticism with what he was trying to do. But he had a pathetic, just like Clint Eastwood when he was in his prime and young, and he'd go to the Bing Crosby, at Pebble Beach and play in the Pro-Am. And it was so sad to watch him. It was sad to watch Ray too, Sugar Ray, on that show, to see, guys that are, supposed to be tough guys and everything, hit the ball like an absolute grandma, like they had no leverage and they had pathetic looking little terrible swings. But this great instructor that was Tiger Woods' instructor and a super expensive instructor, Hank Haney, he couldn't get them to improve. He had Charles Barkley on there too. He made no improvement on Charles Barkley. Now somebody did in the last few years fix Charles Barkley, so it was possible, but he couldn't do it. And watching it, it's just the patterns. That they had all played golf for so long without getting good instruction, without getting a comprehensive understanding what they're trying to do, and without applying themselves to that comprehensive understanding. So they didn't improve, but that's not so bad. What's so bad is that they continued to do it wrong for so many years. And now you have these pathways in your brain that are physically there. And, it's, they call it muscle memory, but it's not in your muscles. It's in your brain, and now you're stuck in that, and that's, wants to go that direction. That does not want to do something new. And when you tell it to, you actually tell yourself, I saw this. I went to Skybound RC and I see the inputs, for this maneuver or that maneuver that I've always wanted to do, and you can't do it. It's because you have actual pathways in your brain that are doing what you've been doing the last 5, 10, 15, 20, or 40 years, and with flying. And it's going to be tough, to break that. You may have to do something a little extreme. You may not have to full throttle rifle 3 feet high, but you may have to do some big things to get you out of it. So got to be in the right frame of mind. You may have to, do a few radical flights to kind of stir your brain up, to where you have a new reference point. It's really kind of what it's all about. When I took that plane down to 3 feet rifle rolling like 10 months ago, whenever it was, then I had a new frame of reference, and I also knew I could do that, but and think I could do it every time. Now I'm pretty consistent, and this has just been recent, so just next level. But that's another thing too, is that persistence, but they always say, practice doesn't make perfect, perfect practice makes perfect. So you got to have all these other things, going as well. So that's some of the stuff that I've, been thinking about, talking about, and some of the stuff that's been happening. And you go in, and sometimes it's so organic, sometimes that, you want to be in the right headspace, but you're just not, and you're thinking, oh, I'm making time, I'm focusing. That's what's happening with me, and then all of a sudden you're just in that headspace. So, you got to take advantage when you are. And right now I seem to be in that headspace, especially like the last 3 weeks. I'm in that headspace where I just seem to be receptive to learning and not being in my comfort zone, and doing these new things. And yeah, pushing a little bit. And yeah, I'm back to, as you can tell by this whole video, back to rifle rolling a lot again. And that you can't get away from that either. You got to have the time. And I always knew that. And I always talked about it. Like Joe McBride wanted to rifle roll too when he saw me start to work on it. But Joe McBride, he's a super talent, but all the rifle rolling he's done in his entire life, if you put a stopwatch on it, because you're talking about, you go to the field, you do a 10-minute flight, you try rifle rolling like 3 or 4 times across the field real high, and you're uncomfortable, and it doesn't even look good because you're so high and wobbling all around. And that was literally about 35 seconds, that you actually did that in your flight, and that was it. You may try it another time that day, so you might get up to a minute, and then you don't do it every time you fly, and yeah, and you try it like he did for 3 or 4 months, and that may have told like 20 minutes, by the time he's done, and that's not going to get it done, especially not when you're old, maybe when you're 12, yeah, but you're going to have to put the time. And I've been rifle rolling a lot more again, even if it's 50 feet, just getting comfortable. And I'm pretty comfortable now. Like, even low, I'm pretty comfortable. I'm still not exactly sure how the plane's going to react all the time. And when you change your point of view, the plane's coming at you from the right, and then it's right in front of you, and it kind of, that always goes by quick. Like you have to move your head. When the plane's way to your right, you're not moving your head much. When it passes you, you got to move your head real quick. And then when it's way to your left, then you're not moving your head that much. And the same when you come back, and I'm doing more left to right now. I don't have too many videos of it, but I know I need to get more left to right. I need to get more crossbox. I need to do more. And ultimately I want to do the down lines, whether it be in a loop or just a straight down line that levels out on the runway is still a goal. But I do feel from so many hours, of trying, and still not enough, I get sidetracked, and, it's not really sidetracked, but I guess don't want to keep just rifle rolling, unless it's like going to be 3 feet high in the runway, and that's really not smart, until you really get that wired. But I've been doing more time, so that really helps. And then I just got the interest back because I was trying to do a lot of other maneuvers, and I still have a lot of other maneuvers I want to get down. But I that rifle rolling still been a thing in my head for a long time to really do that in a super impressive way, because it does kind of put you on, and that's an ego thing, because it does kind of put you on a different level, like we talked about before. But 23 years ago, when I started in 2001, which I guess is 24 years ago now, there was just a handful of guys worldwide that could torque roll, a foot high, and Harrier roll a foot high, all that stuff. Handful of guys. Barely. Barely. Like the TOC guys, at the 2001 TOC, when I started in 2001, at that TOC, you're talking about the 15 most elite pilots in the world in the invitational class at the TOC, and there was maybe 3 or 4 that could torque roll a foot high, maybe. That might be generous. But yeah, you watch like Mike Caglia, stuff is playing, just doing a Harrier like 15 feet high, stuff like that. And a lot of the other guys didn't even come down, Peter Goldsmith, all those guys. I don't even think Mike McConville came down. Like most of them stayed up like at least 30 feet doing everything that they did, but it just puts you on a whole nother level. And yeah, it's kind of cool ego-wise. Like nobody could really doubt you. If in 2001, when I started, you could torque roll a foot high, that just puts you in another category. And yeah, I got a video of me with I've told you guys all this stuff before, but I had a yellow Cardin I bought. Nicest build I've ever seen in my life. I got pictures of it, and I did like a 12-minute flight where I just popped up from the runway and just did a torque roll right in front of me for 12 minutes and then landed. Because it was so much fun. It was so cool. And but now, of course, torque roll is like the most passe, boring. I still think if somebody doesn't know anything about flying, that they a layman, just a non-flyer walks up and sees it, that they're going to be about as impressed or more impressed with that as any other thing done. But for any pilot knows anything, yeah, it's passe move. So now that same maneuver to me, and I've talked to you guys about this before, is the rifle roll, but not just to rifle roll. A couple of guys in my field try to rifle roll like 200 feet up, like I was doing, but it's the rifle roll. 10 feet's fine. Like most of the guys, even Jason and Brittany, are rifle rolling 10 feet high. It's very low. 10 feet's very low, and it looks very low, and it looks sensational. So if you can rifle roll 10 feet high or below, and I'm trying to always get below, and I have plenty of times got below 10 feet, but in that 5 to 10 feet range, man, if you can full throttle rifle roll down the runway, that's another level. And yeah, you're not necessarily going to win, any freestyle competition just by having that. You're going to have more these days and do super cool routine. But yeah, it does put you in a different category, of guys. So that's why I'm going to keep working on it. That's why I came back to it, without spending more time on the other maneuvers, because I'd still like to really have that down where I could go, yeah, 10 feet's fine, like the length of the runway from right to left and left to right, and crossbox and anything I want to do, like 10 feet high, like comfortably, and be able to drop in. Yeah. And be able to descend even on that line, from 10 feet to 5 feet, then back up to 10 feet, and just be comfortable doing that. Like, even though that probably shouldn't be my main goal, I should be more well-rounded and everything. I'm pretty linear, single-minded. I still want that. So I'll work on other stuff. I've spent some time on the Santi slide and other things. I still want to get the crankshaft that I do, which is kind of a mix, of a crankshaft, cartwheel, torquino thing that I want to get. And I've been practicing it for like a year, but I still haven't done it the way I want. Like, I want to get to where that pops up vertical torque roll position, hover torque roll position on the runway. And I keep doing it like 50 feet up and, like ending 30 feet up. And I want to come in, 30 feet up and end up 10 feet up, but it's very scary. So trying to get that wired, because that would be very dramatic if you could do like end that crankshaft cartwheel, torquino-y finish, end, just completely, spinning around end over end, and just have it end up, upright hover torque roll position, even 10 feet high, on the runway. That would be pretty sick. If 5 feet high, would be nuts. It would really look cool. But that's something, I'm trying to get down. Other things I'm trying to get down to, more wing slaps, especially like stair stepping backwards each direction, like reversing, there's a lot of stuff I'd like to do. But yeah, I have been back on rifle rolls again, and it has been improving. And yeah, I noticed you had to be in the right frame of mind, and noticed that I had subconsciously, I didn't do it consciously, but I knew I was getting kind of sick of it and mad at myself that I kept rifle rolling so high, so many hundreds of feet up, and then I just dropped down to 3 feet and went ballistic, but it was enough to make it was a shift, a paradigm shift, but I wasn't immediately comfortable, down there. It just helped. And then now, slowly doing the progression to actually get to where I was lucky. I pushed it, got lucky, and now, I've spent like 8 months, 10 months, like getting to where that's actually legit to be there. Like, I didn't deserve to be there when I was there. Like, it was just, yeah, stroke of luck. And, but yeah, now I deserve to be there. And then I thought I'd mention a couple tips. Now, they may not be tips to other people, and you guys may already do them and do them your way, but I haven't really given a lot of tips through the years of like little tricks that I do that work for me. I'll give you the big picture and everything, but I just thought I'd go ahead and reveal one, and maybe it's nobody's gonna care. It's not gonna help anybody, or everybody already does it. But I think where you look turns out to be a big deal. And I used to look at like the middle of the plane when I was doing a Harrier roll, um, kind of upper, closer to the cow when I'm doing the torque roll, or across the top of the wings, probably across the top of the wings. When I was doing a torque roll or a hover, I'd look across the top of the wings. And then, yeah, Harrier roll is like the middle of the plane. And so in the Harrier roll, and I have videos of me doing Harrier rolls with big, beautiful planes, like after I was flying like 5 or 6 months, back in 2001. And they were very clean. Like they look better than a lot of the ones I do today. But I would always look at the middle of the plane, and then I would try to gauge, through my peripheral vision, like where my XY airspace was and how far I was from the ground and all that. But then one of the, for me, it's a trick. It's a trick that I use. And I don't know what I don't know if anybody's going to care. But I started doing it a while back, probably started doing it 9 years ago. On that time back, I really started getting better at being real low. Instead of being like even 1 to 2 feet low, which is, super low, but that's, I had that Kyle Washness always to reference, and, he could drag the tail feathers anytime he wanted, and usually was. That was just kind of a given that he was always dragging them. And, so yeah, I think it was like 2017 that I started doing it, right before I quit in 2017. Because I flew from 2016 2017, and what I started doing when I was doing the Harrier rolls, instead of watching the middle of the plane and watching the way it's rolling, trying to keep it axial and all that stuff, and keep the alpha to where I wanted it, kind of low, higher, mid, and then how fast I wanted my airspeed to be and all that stuff. When I want to get really low, like either touch, like I was doing a video for Joe McBride's drone like in 2017, and I wanted to touch, so I touched like 6 times, like in 50 feet going down the runway, and you could hear like click click click, each time a tail feather hit. And what I started doing was, instead of looking at the middle of the plane or worry about the plane much at all, I just started looking at the rudder, and elevators. I wouldn't look at the plane, the real main part of the plane. I would just look right at the very edge of the back of the plane, the bottom. And then I could gauge. It was real easy. And I keep it close to me because, like I said, my eyes are bad. So I try to keep it within, 40 feet. And, 20 is even better. And then I would just look at that. So it's really easy to see the gap between, you don't have to look peripheral vision or anything. You can actually see that you're 6 inches from the asphalt, and then you could take that down to 4, then 2, even 1 if you want, or even scrape them, but I just look there. And when I do the knife edge passes, I have a lot of knife edge passes from 7 years ago with like my Sequoia, 8 years ago, whenever it was, my 122 inch Hanger 9 Sequoia. And then this, last year and a half, flying back, where a knife edge by really low. Well, I don't look at the plane anymore like I did 10, 15, 20 years ago. I look at the bottom of the wing. So I'm not watching how the plane's flying. I get it like lined up so it's plumb and everything's square, and then I just look at the very bottom of the wing that's on the runway, and I feel quite comfortable, being a foot high and then going to 6 inches and then going to 3, 2, because I'm just looking right there. Of course, you have to know that it's like a level runway. That's what got me, again, with this plane, a day or two ago, was I went over the dirt and the grass, which was further away, so I'm not seeing that well, and then it's got lumps. And then I remember when we flew at the XFC in 2003 at that airport, it was all grass next to the railroad stuff. I don't even know what that field's called, but it was super lumpy, up and down, like it could pitch up and down a foot, over 20 feet in all kinds of different areas. And yeah, so if you're going to sit there and go down to 1 inch and fly along that way, it's got to be a pretty flat surface. But that's, something that, it was one of those, aha moments that I really enjoyed, and it really changed things for me in terms of that one aspect, of being able to fly super low and pretty comfortable, and pretty consistent and not worried, like, and pretty easy. So a lot of things depend on where you look. In golf, where you look's a big deal too. It will affect everything. You could take 5 swings looking at 5 different places, and you're going to get 5 different results on your swing. And where I look at the plane makes a difference. And looking at where you're going to make contact with the runway, with the ground. That was a little tip for me, a little discovery tip of my own that has made a difference. And there was another one I was going to tell you guys about, something I do, but I kind of forgot. But hey, it's 40 minutes already, 41 minutes. That'll leave something for another video another time. I'll write it down. So I don't know how this talkie will be received. It's very disorganized. Of course, they usually are. And it doesn't cover too many subjects, and it repeats itself over and over. But just some stuff that was on my mind. I thought I would share. All right, guys, out.